to Wednesday's Economy Watch, where we follow the economic events and trends that affect New Zealand. I'm David Chaston, and this is the international edition from interest.co.nz. And today we lead with news that although the US claims the ceasefire with Iran is holding and ships are lining up to transit, in fact very little is moving in the area between Iran's red lines. And the most high-profile transit in the past 24 hours was an Iranian tanker. Still, the US claims resonated on Wall Street and stocks rose, benchmark rates fell. But first today there was another full dairy auction earlier, a small one where volumes offered and sold were the least in 15 years since mid-2011. But prices were up 1.5% in US dollar terms, up 1.6% in New Zealand dollar terms. Butter prices continued to slide, but there were good gains for skim milk powder, whole milk powder and mozzarella. These gains end two consecutive full events where prices fell. US job openings fell, although to be fair, that was less than expected. But even then, they're back to levels they had in April 2018, which is less than it seems because their labour force is so much larger now. There were two services PMI reports out for the US overnight, the ISM one and the S&P Global one, and both showed that new business intakes fell for the first time in 2 years, as war in the Middle East and inflation hit demand. But both were positive, even if less so than in prior 2 months. The reason for the retreat can be found in the latest April Logistics Managers Report, where freight costs leapt, taking this index back to pandemic stress levels. And the US RCM TIPP Economic Optimism Index fell yet again, down to levels last seen in early 2024. It has retreated steadily since December 2024. Its sponsors' report called it steady, but that is gilding it somewhat. US exports and imports were little changed in April, but both are in rising trends, even if imports rose slightly more than exports, which rose largely on petroleum exports. Their trade deficit was wider. Canada also reported export data, and that came in at a one-year high, an unexpectedly good result, largely on the back of high exports of petroleum and gold. Imports fell back in April, but from an unusually high March level. The result was a good trade surplus, their first since September 2025. And Singapore reported March retail sales late yesterday, and they were better than expected, with a good 4.8% rise from a year ago. That represents a real gain because their CPI inflation was just 1.8% in March. As widely anticipated, the RBA raised its cash rate target by 25 basis points to 4.35% late yesterday. It was a split decision, with one voting member wanting to hold the rate unchanged. But they face sharply higher inflation threats that have seemed to be growing, and prior rate hikes have done little to quell those. However, they have restrained their housing market enthusiasm, and this latest hike is expected to put the brakes on further. Traders still believe there is at least one more rate hike increase this year, despite the RBA saying their policy was still only mildly restrictive. This comes after the March CPI rose 4.6%, and yesterday they reported that household spending remained high over the year in nominal terms, up 6.3% compared with March 2025, at its highest since January 2023. Most of this is price, and much of it relates to the 32.8% increase in monthly fuel prices. But in volume terms, they say fuel purchases are lower, down 1.3% in March from February. The US Treasury 10-year yield is now just on 4.42%, down 2 basis points from this time yesterday. And the price of gold will start today up $37 at $4,559 an ounce. Silver's unchanged at just over $73 an ounce. American oil prices are down $3 at just on $102 a barrel, while the international Brent price is down $3.50 at $110 a barrel. It is hard to see these prices easing further given the sharp fall in global oil reserves recently. Even the future process of building them back will add to demand and prices. The Kiwi dollar is up 20 basis points from yesterday at 58.9 US cents. Against the Aussie, we're up 10 basis points at 82 Australian cents. Against Euro, we're up 20 basis points at 50.4 Euro cents. That all means our trade-weighted index starts today at just under 62.3, which is up 20 basis points from yesterday. And the Bitcoin price starts today at $81,300 and up 0.9% from yesterday. Volatility of the past 24 hours has been modest, just on plus or minus 1.3%. You can get more news affecting the economy in New Zealand from interest.co.nz. Kia ora, I'm David Chaston. We'll do this again tomorrow.